Back here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, SiriusXM Mad Dog Sports Radio. My honor and privilege to have my next guest on the line. For so many years, he was in Chicago playing with Jay Cutler and the Chicago Bears, but I won't go there right now. He's with the Carolina Panthers right now. They're undefeated overall, tied for first in the NFC South with the Atlanta Falcons. I'm talking about cornerback extraordinaire himself, Mr. Charles Tillman, right here with me on XM. Mad Dog Sports Radio. What's going on, Big Time? How are you, man?
I'm good. What's going on? I'm good. Thanks for having me.
4-0, man. My pleasure. 4-0. 4-0 for the Carolina Panthers. Did you see that coming?
Yeah. You know.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Even after Kelvin Benjamin went down?
Even after Kelvin Benjamin went down.
Why?
Next man up mentality.
Okay.
That's how we think.
All right. But what is it that you saw coming in? And first of all, why did you decide to come to Carolina to begin with?
Ron Rivera. I had him in Chicago when he was our D coordinator back in 2006 when we went to the Super Bowl. And it's just something about his leadership presence. You know, his ability to lead, his ability to coach. You know, he's the kind of guy that you know what, I want to play for this coach. You know, when you make a mistake and you feel bad, like that's how I would feel when I let Ron Rivera down. And you don't like that feeling. It's kind of like when you let your pops down. You feel like, damn, I let my dad down. It's the same thing with Coach Rivera. And that was one of the reasons I really wanted to come to Carolina. Explain
to me the difference between a guy that becomes a coordinator and one that when he becomes a head coach, as it relates to his relationship with a player.
Well, I think I have a good relationship with Ron just because, one, he's a former player. And I don't think he's like most head coaches. And I think most former players that are now coaches, they tend to coach differently because they think like players because they used to play the game at the highest level. So they know what's going on. They know the situations. They've been there. I think as a coordinator, yeah, you're running the defense, but you're running it how the head coach wants it. Now, he's the head man in charge. So he tells everybody how he wants it done, but with the respect of in that coordinator's defensive style. You know, and I think Coach Rivera's done a great job with his defensive staff as far as letting Sean McDermott and the rest of the other defensive coaches kind of do what they want or do what Coach Rivera wants them to do, but they're doing it in their own style with their own flavor.
Y'all are the third-ranked defense in all of the NFL right now in terms of points allowed, even though your first four victories were against Jacksonville, Houston, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay. But we'll bypass that. You're 4-0. You're undefeated. That's the bottom line. Is it because of the defense or is it because of Cam Newton?
I think it's both. You know, I think Cam is, you know, I hated to see that KB went down, but at the same time, next man up mentality. Greg's making plays. Ted's making plays. Philly's making plays. Ed Dixon's making plays. Stewie's making some plays. You know, Burson's. So, you know, Cam's, he's not really focused on one guy per se, but I think, you know, everyone else on the offense, we got playmakers on our offense, and, you know, I think this situation has allowed Cam to use other avenues. Jay Cutler, you know, I think he, like you, arm, the hand cannon, potential, the talent, the arm strength, I think he has all that, but it's up to Jay Cutler if he wants to go out there and perform day in and day out and be consistent in developing his craft.
Charles Tillman right here with Stephen A. SiriusXM, Mad Dog Sports Radio. Those questions that you might or some others may seem to have about Jay Cutler, it certainly isn't questions they have about Cam Newton, who's energized, who's enthusiastic, seems to want it. That's correct to say, is it not?
Yeah, Cam, he wants it.
Something about you, because you got a book?
I got a book.
You got a book out? The Middle School Rules of Charles Tillman?
Yes,
Is that the title of the book?
That's the title of the book.
I mean, middle school rules?
Middle school rules.
Explain yourself. I don't understand this.
So, you know, middle school, I wasn't always a big superstar Charles Tillman, all pro corner or whatever. I wasn't always like that. There were some challenges and difficulties that I kind of had to learn from. And it goes from me getting profiled in sixth grade, from moving around to 3 schools in Germany, having failed a class my junior year in high school, getting kicked off the track team. So it just talks about, you know, my trials and struggles as a kid and the choices that I had to make to overcome those. And just listening to the rules that my parents and all my aunties and kinfolk had for me growing up.
So you're telling us what's some of the things that you want people to take from reading this book right here? Who do you want to take? Who do you want to take from kids? Parents to their kids? Who are you looking for to really get this message?
Really just the kids, let them know that I can identify with what they're going through. You know, example, living in Germany for a number of years, and I was always one of 2 or 3 black kids, but there were white kids, there were Asian kids, there were German kids, there were Jewish kids, there were Mexicans, there were Puerto Rican. You know what I'm saying? It was a whole
potpourri,
of race.
Right.
And then I went to Chicago, and it was like all black kids. And I was like, well, where the Asians at? Where the Mexicans? Where are the Puerto Ricans?
Right.
Where the Germans at? Like, I was so used to just having so much culture in my classroom, and I was a guy that didn't fit in, and I was a black guy. And I was, you know, why do you talk like that? It's like, why do I talk like what? You know, my dad was a guy, he was a military sergeant, and we couldn't, you know, we couldn't talk a certain, we had to talk a certain way in our house. You know, we couldn't, hey, me and Stephen A. What'd you say?
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Stephen A. and I are about to,
you go.
know, my dad, he would constantly correct us on stuff like that. So when I went to school in Chicago, and I think in 6th grade, like, kids kind of made fun of me how I talked, because it's like, why you talk so proper? Why you talking like a white person? It's like, what are you talking about, a white person? That's how you're supposed to talk.
Right.
You know, my dad won't let me talk a certain way. I have to talk this way because it's the right way to do it. You know, so I talk about that. I talk about a whole bunch of stuff.
So much noise has been made about this kid Leonard Fournette out of LSU, how big time he is. And I wanted to know the thoughts of an NFL player, how they felt about the NFL rule mandating that you have to be 3 years removed from high school before you can be allowed to enter that game. Some people like myself are like, you can put your life on the line for the military.
Right.
Why can't you enter the NFL? Others are saying that is a man's game, and you need to be ready for all it entails before going to the NFL. What are your thoughts about that?
I think you bring up a good point. At 18, you can enter the military, admirable. But also, too, I think, you know, when you give a young kid tons of money, because obviously if he were in the draft right now, he'd be a first-round pick, right? When you give a kid millions of dollars, you know, there comes a, you know, I'll be the first to admit I wasn't completely mature at the age of 22 when I got my signing bonus. I went from making $1,500 a semester with a Pell Grant to my signing bonus was $2 million. Now, I think it's just, it all comes with maturity and having the right people in your life that help you make all the right decisions. I think it's a good rule, just from the standpoint of millions of dollars, 20 years old, 19, 20, probably not real mature yet. You know, you got to go through some things, you know, develop your craft. The NFL, it's not going anywhere. But I kind of understand where you're coming from, though. There's always that, the risk of injury. You know, that's something you always got to think about. But
the risk of anything. Risk of anything that can prevent you from playing.